Hi, everybody. I'm Jennifer Tryon. Happy Thanksgiving Monday if you are tuning in from Canada. We are here to answer your questions today, myself and Amanda Brown. Hello, Amanda.
Hello.
Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving to you, too.
Well,
Hi.
I'm going to do a little confession here. We, as you are watching this right now, are actually not here. We are somewhere in the world wearing stretchy pants and feeling very full, as you may be right now, because we are pre-taping this today. We've got lots of questions that were sent in this week. So we're pre-taping it just a little wee ahead so that we could have a Thanksgiving long weekend to Amanda, myself, and Karin, who are always here doing these lives for you guys. So forgive us if you're putting your questions in the comments. You still can, and we will look at them and answer them via the comments because we can do that. But we're going to be answering the questions that were sent in live this week. And any questions that were sent on the chat this week we'll answer via message or comment and bring them on to the live the following week. So, Amanda, I love your hair.
Thank you. Thank you. Fresh dye. I love it.
Pink and perfect. I love it.
That's right.
Looks so good. We've had a lot of questions about threading the serger this week.
Oh, yeah.
We've got a couple of questions about going over the automatic needle threader and how to sew on a button. And you've been working on some stuff. What have you been working on?
Oh my goodness. I'm having so much fun with the embroidery machine. I made these little ghost bookmarks. And then they have like all those little sparkles and glitter that you see at like Michael's, and you're like, I want to buy that, but I have zero use for it. Oh yeah. Now I have a huge stash of it because you can put it inside of these little bookmarks that are like leather with clear vinyl on top. Well, it's not leather. It's fake. It's vinyl. So
those look so good. Oh, sorry, Karin came back to me when I walked away. I was trying to get a close-up look at what you were doing there. This is so cool. The fact that you're incorporating the sparkles into the sewing project. Anybody who's watching that's a paper crafter is probably well versed in the shaker card and how adding that glitter onto the front of a card is like it's swept the world by storm. So I love that you're doing that with sewing.
Yes. Yeah, it's such a cool pattern. That one's from the Nosy Pepper. She's a little bit snarky. It's great. I love it. So, but like that's one of her designs, and it was really fun to make. And it was really cool because I got to like embroider on one layer, put a layer on top, but also put a layer on the back.
It's like so cute. So I mean, like Halloween's one of those, I feel like one of those holidays that I don't feel pressure to create for, that anything I do create for Halloween, and same with Thanksgiving, is just fun.
Yeah.
It's just fun. Christmas, I'm like, I got to get this done. I have a deadline. Halloween, I'm like, this is just fun. Because if it happens, no one expects like lots of, anything for Halloween except for just dress up. Although I guess making the costume, I have felt a bit of pressure for that. But craft-wise and like stuff like that, that's just pure fun.
Yeah. No, and it's just a great way to use up if you have little scraps of vinyl around. Like it was a great project.
Yeah, great project. Okay, so let's get to the first one of the first questions. We were talking about serging, and I want to see some posts, people making their washcloths. Amanda, people are loving this project. This was Amanda's brainchild in Serger 101 to make these washcloths, and they're out of this beautiful organic French terry cloth that we sent in the kits, and you can choose whatever color thread you wanted from your kit. But someone was asking, where can we buy more of this fabric? And I bought this regular price. There's no wholesale here from Simplify Fabric. So it's SIMP. I want to say SIMPI FLI.
I think there's 2 I's at the end.
Is there 2 I's at the end? Fabric. And she's in Iroquois, Ontario. So Canadian. We always try to source Canadian when we can. It's organic French terry. So even if you can't find it from her at Simplify Fabric.
I was wrong. It's just 1 I at the end.
1 I at the end. Yeah.
The banking thing is 2 I's.
If she was a we character, it would have
Yeah, that's where I've always gotten that fabric. There are other sources, but often you have to buy a whole bolt. Now, if you are up to that challenge, but a lot of places won't sell you yardage, but Simplify will just sell you yardage.
And her prices are decent. They're not wholesale prices. Like
No.
it's like it's her business. But the fabric is such good quality. She's sourced really great stuff. But know that it's called Organic French Terry. That's what we're using. So if you can't find it from her, at least if you're searching for the type of fabric it is, that's what it is. And it is different than terry cloth, like your towel fabric, because it only has the loops on the one side. The other side feels very much like a high-end sweatshirt. And then the inside has smaller loops than a regular towel. And they're kind of they're soft, but I don't want to say rough because they're not rough, but it has like a grit to it. So it's perfect for, nice one soft side for washing your face or a baby's bum. And then the other side that it has more of the loops is great for like scraping off that mascara.
And I think she normally has the black as well.
Yes. So if you don't want them to get all like kind of marked up, grab I've also bought purple from her and a bunch of different colors. So you can.
I had yellow once.
Oh yeah, that's great. Anyway, you can have tons of fun with this, and these are great gifts to give people. If you're thinking about giving handmade gifts for Christmas, you'll be able to whip these up in no time. Some other issues that were coming up were about taking the corner. So Amanda, I know you talked a little bit about it in the video, but let's just go over taking this corner. And I'm going to, while you're talking about tips on taking a corner with the serger, I'm just going to set up the sewing machine to demo the automatic needle threader. So I'll leave that to you.
So when you're coming into the corner, sometimes it's best to just stop for a second about a couple inches out and prepare yourself. Make sure everything is organized and you know where you're going to put your hands. As you're coming into the corner, you're going to, with your left hand, you're going to pin down the fabric a couple inches away from the needle so that it's a pivot point. So as it's stitching, it will want to keep turning around. And you're going to use your other hand to like push the fabric around. Which way am I going? I'm going up like this, and then I'm going to pull it towards me as it's going around so that you are, it's hard to do when you're not doing it on the machine. Yeah, I'm going to push it around so that it's going to turn that corner nice and smoothly. Do not stop in the middle of the corner. Just go with it. If it's going off the rails, let it go off the rails. It's like one of those things, the more you do it, it becomes like, now I just do it automatically. Like I just go through and I whip it around and it's fine. If you're still struggling with that, like the drawing the curve, I find helps if I line that the line with my cutter, like where it cuts. So it goes into the knife and I watch it go under the knife. If it's going under the knife and being cut right along that line, it's going to sew on that line. So I think sometimes we tend to look at where it's stitching or beyond where it's stitching, but really if you watch the knife, it's going to give you a better idea of exactly where it's going to sew. Because when it's under the foot, it's going past the knife. So it's not going to move around. It's being held in place and that knife is going to cut on that line and then you should be able to shift around.
Very good. Yeah, that's helpful. That is helpful. And also not to be too hard on yourself. If it's not a perfect square, like it really doesn't matter. Even the most expensive washcloths in my cupboard after I've washed them are like sometimes. So like, don't sweat it. Try your best. And you know what? If you really mess up, just go around again. Sew your washcloths a little bit smaller. No big deal. Big deal.
And like, if you decide that you want to make some little tiny, the makeup rounds.
Makeup pad. Yeah.
Like start with makeup squares.
Yeah. They don't even have to be round. And if worse comes to worse and you don't want to try to take the corner and you just want to go straight and then take it off and then go straight again and then straight again and straight again and have them be corners, and then you can tie off on the ends if you're having a hard time doing the rounding. No big deal at all. Yeah. Since we're talking about the serger, let's just finish the serger questions while we're all at once here. April's asking, could you please review how to thread the upper and lower loopers in the air thread serger? And she's basically after you do the whole air chamber bit. So if you don't have the air thread serger, you're still going to want to watch this because it's so satisfying to see this threading. So I'm going to open it up here and make sure you guys can really see. And Karin, tell me if you think we need to be zoomed in a bit more or if you think that's going to work fine. So I'm going to go ahead and snip these threads. And I'll close this up and just actually chain out the rest of it. So I got nothing left in there now. And maybe what I'll do is put, I'll use the first one white and then the second one I'll put pink so that we can see the difference in the thread. So obviously, when we're threading it, we're going through the top looper. But with the air thread serger, it's all a little different. You're making sure you're switched to the side of the looper that you're going to be threading. So we're going to start with the lower looper, and I'm going to lock the entire machine, hand wheel towards me so that it locks. And then you want to give yourself enough of a tail. Sorry, I'm using the white thread here, so maybe it's a little too hard to see. Should I switch to a color here? Hold on. I'm going to just pull this out and I'll just grab a colored thread. I'll use this variegated thread just so you can see it a bit better when I'm bringing it down. All right, so
and good technique with 2 hands to make sure it gets into the tension disc.
Yeah, and I've made sure I've pulled like a long kind of enough of a loop here that there's enough thread that it's going to be able to make its way all through the mechanisms here. And getting that down into that air chamber, sometimes I'm just like kind of poking it in like this. The other tip, Amanda, or I've done this a couple times, is I've just kind of gently gone like this to get it in.
Yeah.
Because then it just pulls it just a little bit.
Yeah.
And you're not kind of trying to push it down. So it kind of just sucks ever so slightly. And so I like doing that. I don't think that's an official way.
I like it.
In the manual, but it totally works. And then you're going to watch for this coming out the lower looper, which is this bar here. And it's locked in place. So if we're watching right there, I'm going to push this down.
It's magic.
And did you see that shoot out? So I think her question is, now what do you do with it? Because it is true. You kind of get to this point and you're like, should I just leave it there? So even if you're threading a regular serger that doesn't have the air function, it is a bit of a mystery sometimes when you're like, well, okay, I put it through all the things. Now where do I put it? But I loved watching you kind of take the thread and lift that presser foot up and keeping everything behind, just sort of like, if you can't get it under that tunnel, I always kind of aim for this tunnel back here to put the threads through. And you can do that if you can get it under your presser foot and back there. But just make sure it's not kind of caught on anything in front. The aim is to get it back into that tunnel. And you'll always kind of get it there if you get it under the presser foot, but just make sure it's not caught on, the knife or the upper looper or anything like that. And then once it's kind of just laying flat at the back, you're good, right, Amanda?
Yeah. And like the biggest thing is that knife, like the amount of times that I have unbeknownst to me gotten it caught in front of the knife and then it just gets cut. And I'm just like, ugh. So make sure that it's not in front of the knife and to the back of the machine. And I like to go in front like you just did there and under the foot so that it gives me a lot of, like, I'm not trying to feed it through the hole with sticking my arms through there. Like, it's really nice and straightforward.
Right. Karin, are you doing okay? I just want to... Okay. Okay. So next one up is the lower looper. So once the upper looper is kind of in behind there, the lower looper time. So I'm going to make that switch, which is here, over to the lower looper. And again, just have that tail
Do you have
hanging
that
down.
backwards? Is that the upper looper now?
Or sorry, that's the upper looper. Yes. Sorry. Duh. Upper looper. And just a
not
tip.
confuse everyone.
Yes. I'm going loopy with the loopers. I always start with a blunt edge, like a freshly snipped edge is good.
Having
on
a
your
frayed
thread.
causes issues.
Yeah. And again, just get it down in there. And it is finicky. Like, well, I wouldn't say it's finicky. It works fine. It's more like when your hands are too involved in things, sometimes you feel like you're all like finger or all thumbs. That can be this process. So, and again, just watch here. If I do that little mini pump, if you do that little
It's already
mini
done
pump,
it.
oh, it already threaded. Okay, that was a very big mini pump. I'll do it one more time there, and now it's all the way in. But that little mini pump just helps suck it down in, but obviously it just threaded just fine. Did you see that pop out there?
Yeah, I really love that because like I was demoing this 2 weeks ago, and my little pump did nothing because my thread was not far enough in. And a lady laughed. She's like, "Thank you for doing what I do every time." I'm like, yes.
Yeah, it happens. Like sometimes you're like, sometimes it works so extremely well, and then other times you're like, what am I doing wrong here? Yeah. And that's just the nature of sewing, honestly. And so I just did the same with that upper looper where I just kind of let it dodge the knife, put it underneath the presser foot, and then back so that it's kind of laying flat back there. When I put down the presser foot, the threads are sort of in that, I think there's probably a better word than tunnel, but that's what it looks like to me. Yeah, like is it a channel on the presser foot? Yeah. But they all have that. And if it's not right in there, it's not the end of the world. No. And then you're going to go ahead and thread your needles. And you know it's threaded correctly if you press the foot pedal and you're getting a chain. If you don't get a chain, you have not threaded it correctly. And so, if you're not getting a chain, you've not threaded it correctly. When you've threaded it right, when you don't, it's not like a regular sewing machine where you have to have fabric in to use the machine. You want to chain off a little bit first, and then it's a giveaway. And you kind of do a little internal dance party when that chain shows up. Like, yes,
yeah. And with the air threader, the only thing you have to remember at the end is to switch that switch back. Although I have forgotten, and it seems to do it automatically later. But best practice.
So what do you mean? You put the switch,
the bottom switch.
This one, yes.
Yeah. So switch it back. You have to remove those channels. But
you have to unlock it. And then you're good to go.
Yeah.
So that's what you do with your threads after they've gone through the looper. Hopefully that answers your question, April. She's also, was there one more that she was asking? Does it have to go through the little hole like in the demo? I think the little hole she's talking about is that channel, is that the tunnel. Yes. Or
is it anyway. Like the little hole that you put the thread through? Like with the air threader, you have to use those holes because that puts everything in. You can't bypass those and just
you can't bypass those holes. No, it needs to go all the way through. And then she's asking about nylon thread. And is it true that you can't use nylon thread in?
No, that's not true. You can. Okay. I think where the confusion is that there are certain types of thread with the air serger or the air threader that won't go nicely through the thread channel. So you have to use a different method. But like, I just always do it. So try your thread. So if you have a woolly nylon, I've never had problems getting my woolly nylon through that air threader. We have had problems with a thicker thread that isn't necessarily what you would normally use. And then you would have to use the air threader comes with a guide wire. Yeah. And so it's very similar threading, except for you are now pulling the thread through with a wire.
Yeah, and you just kind of put it down in and guide it
you
through,
go
right?
where the what are those? The little arms that the thread pops out of.
Yep.
You put the wire through that hole and feed it all the way through, and it will pop up where that little hole is where we put the thread in typically. Yep. So yeah, you put it in the little hole there, it'll wind its way through, you keep pushing, and then it'll pop up where we normally stick the thread down to air thread. And then you just put your thread through and pull it through.
Yeah, and then it'll go all the way through.
Yeah.
The woolly nylon, if anyone did our napkins class with the air thread serger, when I was testing it, I did have to thread it a couple of times because this is thicker. It definitely helped me to have a blunt edge and to really, I kind of twisted it a little bit so it was like as skinny as I could possibly get it. But once you got it through, it went through just fine. But anything thicker like that, you may need to use the wire. It comes with the machine.
Yes.
So keep that in mind. But in terms of Maxi Lock, like I know April was asking about Maxi Lock thread. She just bought a whole bunch of it. And often you can get Maxi Lock thread at a really good price. Mm-hmm. No, I've used Maxi Lock thread in this serger for years. Now, I will tell you, you get what you pay for with thread. It'll serve you, like it'll sew. You will notice the lint buildup kind of will be increased because it's just not quite, it's not double gassed. It's not as slick as some of the other threads, like the Wonderfill thread.
Yeah.
But it's also cheaper. And so, you'll notice. You'll notice, but you can use it, and I've used it for years, and nothing has fallen apart or, totally disintegrated. You'll be just fine. But you will notice that it's furrier. You'll see it catch the lint in the room a bit more than some of the other threads. And so use what you've got.
I've used even like regular sewing thread.
Totally.
So like the serger thread is like it's just one strand, or like it's less strands than when you have a normal sewing thread. Mm-hmm. But because you have multiple threads together, that's what gives it its strength. But sometimes they don't have the right color, so I break out my sewing thread.
You want to know what I've done before? And this is a hot tip. If I only have one of this color and I need 4, mm-hmm. I'm not buying. I've wound 3 other bobbins, mm-hmm. and I've put the bobbins on there because you just need a little bit. And that's what I've done with one spool of thread to match the color is wind up some bobbins and put those bobbins right on there.
Absolutely.
That's thread. It's, it doesn't always have to be exactly what the manufacturers are saying you should use. Sometimes you can go rogue and just test it out. And that bobbin trick, while I normally use the cones of thread, if you needed a color that you didn't have and you like it was a odd color and you weren't going to go through 4 cones of that, no reason why you can't just wind a couple bobbins. Just make sure your tension is good. But no problem.
Yeah. And if you're using anything like crazy thick, like just hand crank your machine towards your face, remember, and see what it's stitching like. If it's like a jumbled mess, don't do it. But if it looks like it's stitching fine with you hand cranking, then try it. Yeah. Like the biggest thing is we don't want to damage with the air thread or any of the little tubes. We don't want to get something stuck in there.
Definitely not.
But if you find that it's clogged, you have that wire that's come with it to feed it through and try to unclog it.
And don't try, be reasonable. Don't try putting like a 12 weight hand sewing thread into something as sophisticated as the air thread serger and be like, wow, I want a really thick look. There's threads that are made for that will spread out and give you that look. Yeah. So while we're saying go ahead and use what you've got, be reasonable about it too. If it can go through the eye of a small needle, like your machine, then it's probably safe to use in the serger. Mm-hmm. If it requires a bigger needle, it's for hand sewing, then don't do that.
There are limits. I test those limits, but don't do it.
Yeah. I'm just going to bring this, just going to make sure you guys can see it in our camera here. Someone was asking about if I could go over the automatic needle threader. Leslie's saying, can you please go over how to use automatic threading? And so automatic threading, I interpreted that to be the needle threader, but it could be the threading in the air thread serger. So we just went over that. But for right now, I'm going to go through the needle threader. And this is something that a lot of people struggle with, the needle threader. And almost everyone says that their needle threader is broken or it doesn't work, including me. I've also said this many times. But you have to remember something with the needle threader is it's just a tiny little, smallest part on the entire machine is the little wire that goes through the eye of the needle. So if you can picture this finger like it's a wire, and then this like it's the hole of the needle, it has to come like down, swing over, make it in the eye of a needle, you guys. Like we can't even get the thread in there, let alone mechanically every time get that wire right in there. And so the first time you did it, if it worked, if you yanked too hard on the back, that could push that wire over a little bit. So now instead of hitting the wire or hitting the eye of the needle, it might be hitting the side of the needle and not going in. That's a common one. But take a look if you're struggling with your needle threader. Can you see if the wire is making it into the eye of the needle? And a couple things to start. You want to make sure your machine, the needle is in the most upright position. So I'm putting the machine on, and the needle will start in the most upright position. But if you're having to rethread and you're just hand wheeling the needle up, sometimes it's hard to get it exactly right. So if you have a needle up down button, go down and then back up so that the machine itself puts the needle in the most upright position. And there's a couple of different kinds of needle threaders depending on which machine you have. This one here is the more automatic one. I've got this on the 5300 here, but the same one is on all of the big machines too, where it comes down and it needs to flick into place like this and make it through the eye of the needle. The more basic needle threader goes down in just one, and then it stays down and you have to wrap it around and kind of like let it pull through. But I'll go through this one first. So you basically need to make sure that your thread goes up towards number 7. But it has a number 7 there, but really what you're trying to do is get it into these little alligator teeth that are behind this number 7. So make sure it's getting in the alligator teeth. And then even though it seems like you're supposed to just go like down, up, and then threaded, that's not the motion. This actually is a 3-step process. So you're going to go down and see it went down, but now we need to go down again so that this handle flips in. So down again, so that's 1, 2, and then slowly pull up. Slowly pull up. And you can see the thread is actually right now, it's caught. I know it's hard to see here. I'm going to just zoom right in. Bear with me. The thread is caught on that wire right now. And this happens often because there's a little hook on that wire. All right, that's as far in as I can go. But you can see how that thread is kind of on the left side there. It's caught on the wire. And this happens often. This thread right there. It's caught on the wire. Now, if I were to just yank that, that's a perfect recipe for pulling the wire out of place. So what you could do is you can snip it out of the little alligator teeth. That's going to give it a little more give. And then just kind of gently pull it down and through. Because if I were to yank on that, it's such a tiny little mechanism. Let me just go this way. It's such a tiny little mechanism, that wire, that you're just risking breaking it. And now you might be saying, oh, mine's already broken. I bet you it's not broken. I bet you the wire is just slightly over. And so if you live nearby, come bring it in and we can easily make that adjustment for you. If it truly is broken, it's not an expensive part. We can get you a new one, no problem. In fact, if you live far and you need a new needle threader, we could walk you through how to, you could put it on yourself. We can order it for you. It's not hard to replace it. But you want to do those 3 steps. I'm going to unthread this. Again, up through the number 7, down once, and then down again. So it goes over, and then slowly lift. And there you see it's on the wire. So I'm just going to snip that off the number 7, and that'll give it a little bit more give. And then you can even give it, sorry, I'm going to try to not block. You can even give it a little slack here, like pull it down halfway so that you can take that thread out of the wire without yanking on the wire. And if it's really caught on there, just bring it down and pull it out. But don't pull so hard that you're going to damage your wire. Amanda, how do you fare with the needle threader? Have you given up on it, or do you use it?
No, I have almost zero problems with mine because like it's just I've gotten into the habit of best practices. So like needle up, needle down, like needle down, needle up, then I thread. If your machine has a locking mechanism, use it because that often puts it right in the right spot. The biggest problems for me usually is when someone else in my house is using my stuff. And because when they use the needle threader, they yank it. And so it does bend that wire. And like often, if you just do it slowly and line it up, you can see what's going on with the wire. And it's just a gentle bend back. You can try to adjust it. But if you bend it too much, it will break off and you'll need to replace it.
Yeah, I have with my fingernail just scooched it back into place because it's, if you picture like it's a wire, they're bendable like that metal, you know, it's strong but it's malleable, you know, to a certain degree until it snaps. So if your wire is still there and it's just misaligned, you could take your fingernail and just kind of push it back in until it gets to the eye of the needle. Otherwise, contact us and we can try to help you out with a new part or get it adjusted for you.
And a lot of the machines are built, the needle threaders are built for the needle specific to that machine. So if you have a Janome, you need to be using a red tip or blue tip or purple tip, like a Janome needle, because it is designed for that needle, like the eye of the needle. Other needles will have the eye slightly off, and that can change things.
That's such a good point that you bring up, because sometimes we're just picking needles out of whatever we have in the stash and saying the needle threader doesn't work. The needle threader works like on Janome needles. That's what they've lined it up for. And you could get lucky.
Companies like that.
Yeah, you could get lucky and the Schmetz needles work today, but maybe it wasn't quite so high or quite so low. And same with, you know, like organ needles are what come with your machine also. So they tend to be Janome needles. So you're fine there. But yeah, just make sure if you're using Janome needles, then it shouldn't be a problem as long as that wire is lined up.
And large, thick thread causes problems. So I wouldn't use the needle threader for that. Also, I find really fine threads, like sometimes they just don't catch.
Yeah, the Deco-Bob and the Invisifil that we're always talking about, don't even bother with the needle threader. It's so thin, that thread. You can hear there's sirens going on outside. It's so thin. Sometimes the automatic scissors on your machine won't even work with that thread because it just can't see it there. The laser that, you know, that's looking for it to where to cut, it just can't find it. So if you're using a specialty thread, you know, do your best to thread the needle. If you've got a machine that's from the 5300 up in the Janome series of machines, then we do have things that can help you see better. There's the optic magnifier that can clip onto your machine that you just, do I have one here? That you can no, I don't, put into place, and it'll help you magnify the needle if you're having, and that helps see if you're wire too. So if you need the optic magnifier for your machine, let us know. We've got some in stock. We can get that off to you because that is a game changer if you're like a cheater glasses person and having a really hard time seeing those small little bits.
And for the most part, almost all the machines that Janome has, you're using your finger to move that lever so you can stick it at the bottom and see exactly what's going on. I know that the M17 is different because it does it all for you. So if you're having a problem, then you need to reach out to your dealer and ask them how to adjust that or see them to help with that adjustment.
Yeah. The other question that Leslie had is, can you go over how to sew a button? And sewing, I'm assuming she means sew on a button, or is she meaning the automatic buttonhole? So there's two separate features. I think sew a button probably encompasses both. And I was just looking for my automatic buttonhole foot in this. It should be in this, but of course it's not. Gosh, we can't keep any pieces together in this place, I swear. But there is a foot that I'm going to find it. Amanda, why don't you talk a little bit about, best practices when sewing on a button, and I'm going to grab the appropriate feet so people can see it.
Are we talking about sewing a button on by hand or on the machine?
I'm going to assume it's with the machine.
Okay. So we have, Jeremy has these like button feet.
Yes. The
which
blue
are so
one.
cool.
Yeah. You've got it there. Good.
Yeah. So the button foot is really interesting. The one that I have here is for the M7, but it has 2 bars to hook in. So I'm going to hook it into the back of my foot and then into the front of my foot. And this allows it to be super stable. So you're going to use a zigzag stitch and make sure that your feed dogs are off. We don't want our foot to, like, our fabric to be moving forward. We want everything to stay stable. So feed dogs off. I was once told that the button distance between the holes is standard. I have not found that. I have not found that at all. So you're going to set your machine up for a zigzag stitch, and then you are going to adjust the width of your zigzag so it lines up with the 2 holes on your button. If there are 4 holes on your button, you're just going to do the whole process twice. Start with one set of holes and then move on to the second set of holes. And then I like to sew more stitches than necessary. So if you have a machine with the application function where you're going to just pick button, the button sewing on feature, and it's going to set it all up for you, I often do it twice.
I do it twice too.
Just to be sure.
And it's so satisfying that the needle manages to go right in the holes that I'm like, let's see that again.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I mean? It literally, when you use that blue foot, it straddles the hole. You choose zigzag stitch and set it up for a button. And they are fairly standard. Now, if you've got a weird sizing, you will adjust your, the width of your needles and you'll hand wheel it down your first 2 stitches to make sure that it is zigzagging in the right spot, just like you say. And then you're good to go. The button is on. I still
close my eyes though when I start sewing.
It's amazing, the button. Yeah.
I close it. I'm just like, no, my eyeball. Just in case.
And then as far as the buttonhole, most machines come with a buttonhole foot. This is what it looks like. And it opens up to the size typically of about a 1 or 1.5 inch button. Not too much bigger than that. And then you want to make sure it's snug in there like this. And whatever fabric you're sewing your button on, you're going to want to put a little piece of stabilizer underneath. Just a tearaway stabilizer is fine. If you really don't have tearaway and you have some fusible, but it needs to be sturdy enough that the fabric is going to lay super flat. It really will help stop any puckering. And then you attach your buttonhole foot onto your machine, just like you would any other presser foot. The button dangles off the back, but it's secured in there. And then all machines have this little lever right here that comes down, and it touches that part of the buttonhole.
I always forget that lever. Always. I'm just like, why is this not working? I'm like, right, that's why.
Right, the lever. I'm just grabbing a piece of stabilizer. I usually have some like sitting around at all times. Here's some. And so if you snag a little piece of stabilizer, this is a giant piece, but I'll just take a little bit off.
Overkill, Jen. Overkill.
I know. I want this fabric to be stable. Just need a little bit. And then and it doesn't have to even be adhered to. As long as it's like there, that's fine. And remember, before you bring your fabric to your machine, mark out where you want your button to go, because it's a bit counterintuitive. It sews away from you, so not towards you. So make sure you're starting at the bottom of where you want it to go and you're sewing up. So do a tester first, in most cases. But so I'm just going to needle up down just to make sure I'm all engaged. And then you can choose, I don't have the thread chart in front of me, so I can't choose the stitch. I'm literally like typing in numbers and guessing. Anyway, I could go downstairs and check. This is how prepared I am today. Anyway, what will happen is
different options.
Yeah, there's lots of different options for ones. But what happens is the machine moves, and basically that bar hits the back of the buttonhole when it's big enough, and then it sews back down and hits again, signaling the machine to stop. And then you've got your buttonhole sewn. And when you take it off, and this is a part that some people find like unbelievable, you just use your seam ripper to open up in between the two sets of satin stitches that make up the side of the buttonhole. Next week I'll do one for sure. Next week I'll do one when I don't have to run and grab the stuff. But
I often use fray check on my buttonhole first, just in case. I don't want to redo it. So just in case, I put the glue on first, let it sit, and then cut it. Yeah. But some machines might not have that lever. And when you're doing a buttonhole, it's often you press the back button, and then it will then start to sew the rest of the buttonhole. So if you don't have one of those little levers that pops down, I know I've had to use the back button, and so you let it go so far, and that foot probably doesn't have that spot for your button in the back. But yeah, there are other ways of doing it. And then often machines from other brands might have a memory function, so you only have to do that once. But if it doesn't, then you're remembering how far. But yeah, buttonholes are a great skill to have because they're so useful. I've seen people put them on quilts. You can use them on so many different things.
Yeah, lots of different things for sure. Even with your little ghost bookmark, you could put a slit at the top and loop the thing through because you've got that secure place to put a hole. Yeah. It's not going to unravel. So it doesn't have to just be for a button for sure.
Absolutely.
Well, we've answered lots of questions here tonight, Amanda. I appreciate you pre-taping with me. Anyone who's put questions in the comments today while we are at home watching this right now with you, we'll be answering them along. And we appreciate you guys letting us pre-tape this so that we could be at home doing Thanksgiving with our families too. But
just one more thing, Jen.
Oh, yes.
I used my new little hook key and I sent in a video so that you can see how it works, and it's really cool. So
shall we?
Karin is going to roll that video.
Let's look.
Okay, so the biggest thing here is you don't want to pull a huge tail through. So I'm giving that a little snip. And then see that the little hook at the end is what you want to put the thread through. So you have to make sure that once you get it through here, it sometimes gets caught. But put the thread in there, but then turn it so it's facing down the little gap so that it doesn't get caught on any of the threads that you're pulling through. Works. Such a great little tool. And so much quicker than threading a needle.
Great. Okay. That's great. If I can find these, I'm going to put them in the shop and put up a link. I think that would be great. Yeah.
Why did we not develop it?
Thank you for doing that video. That was so interesting to see. And it's nice to see things working before you decide to dive in for sure. I think we're going to have to put that on our favorite products list. Because I have a couple things that I've been stacking up where I'm like, I got to show these guys this. I got to show you guys that. And I think that's going to be one of them. Yeah.
Yeah. I just was at a shop doing a whole bunch of things, and the shop owner and I both went through the store and picked out all our favorite notions and just did a talk on that. And it was so great because notions can be spendy, and you want to make sure that you're getting something that someone else approves of, or I bought so many things.
Yeah. Yeah. Can you guys hear how loud it's raining at the moment?
No.
Okay, good. Because it's like a thundering rain and
Oh.
it's all I can
It's
anyway.
sunny and beautiful here today.
That's great. That's great.
We got the rain yesterday.
Well, I appreciate you showing us that video. That's super useful. And you know what? If you guys are interested, maybe we should do maybe before Christmas or going into the Christmas season, we'll do Jen and Amanda's top notions for 2023 or something like that. If people are wanting to put stuff on their Christmas list, we'll do that sooner than later because that'd be pretty fun.
Stocking stuffers.
Yeah. And we're always telling you, what do you want for Christmas? I don't know. And then you end up with another bath bomb. Really? Give me
and a
that
cherry chocolate
Serger hook. What's it called?
A hook key. Little hook key.
Hooky. Little hooky. Yeah, exactly. And then you can get some useful things, but so let's plan to do that before we get too deep into the holidays. That sounds like a good idea. Okay, Amanda, thank you for being here tonight. Thank you all for watching. And if you're watching from Canada, happy Thanksgiving. We are very thankful that you've tuned in and that you've chosen homemade and that you're on this great creative ride with us. We're very thankful for that. So thank you. Bye, everybody.
Bye.